knew you were going to face some injuries. Obviously, playing a violent sport like this, how do you feel a week into camp health wise?
Okay, still have a couple things that have come up like always, but so far it's typical camp.
Plus, I know in spring you said depth on the offensive line was your biggest concern. Is depth at corner now your biggest concern, perhaps?
I mean, it's top three. Yeah. We need to make sure we're building depth there. And we certainly have some candidates there. A couple guys bumped and bruised, but hopefully we get them back soon and keep working.
Last one for me. I know you don't want to get specific about injuries, but none of those are long term to the corners.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right behind him, Cleveland.com, Stephen Means. Ryan, I know we asked you about Cam Brown last week. I just wanted to do that. How is he still moving along with fall camp?
Yeah, he's good. Just had a little tweak, but he's first couple of days of practice looked really good. So looking forward to getting him back out here in the next couple of days.
And do you feel like that wide receiver rotation is coming together outside of Jackson, Marvin, and Mecca, and Julian? How those guys?
I think they're all competing out there. Yeah, I mean, I think that we'll have a good rotation of guys out there. Appreciate their physicality on the perimeter and their professionalism day in and day out. So good first week.
Ryan, it looked like Cam Brown was doing some stuff, but not everything. Is he still on a pitch count with you guys?
Right now he is, yeah, and hopefully he'll be off that pitch count pretty soon.
How do you kind of manage that? What's kind of a concern that you guys are trying to manage there?
Well, when you come back from a procedure, you want to make sure that first off they're healthy enough to do it, but then also even if they are healthy, you have to make sure you're bringing them back the right way. You can't just throw them in there. All of a sudden something else will show up. So it's a combination of making sure that he's recovered, but then also making sure you're building them up the right way.
Front row right, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, any update with Parker Lewis?
No, not yet. Not that I know of. No.
Any timeline or?
Well, we're hoping soon to find out, hear something. I have not heard anything. So.
And looked like Caleb Brown's been returning punts. What have you seen from him?
He's just getting going here. He's somebody that has that skill set. So, we're going to try to bring him along there. We've had a few guys, probably have 3 or 4 guys back there. Jackson being one of them, and Cam Martinez, Mecca is back there, and then Caleb is learning.
Jim said the other day Cam Martinez was in Johnson. We're getting some cross training at corner as well. What do you like about their skill set? Is that a real possibility to help you out with depth there?
Yeah, well, they both have cover skills, and the position that they play, they have to do a lot of covering. So, they're every time they're out there, they're learning that skill of playing man to man and covering guys, and that says a lot about their skill set. So, yeah, I mean, the more versatility they have, the more they can do, and the more valuable they are to the defense.
Over here, front row right, Austin Ward, Rivals 97.1 The Fan.
Thanks for letting us watch practice, Ryan. Let's say you have an inside period and the defense stuffs the run. Are you more encouraged by what you see defensively or worried about your offense?
Well, that drill right there, literally what we do is we just go right across the board and we look at the one-on-one drills or one-on-one matchups. And we just look at fundamentals. We look at pad level. We look at hand placement. Certainly, both sides want to win the drill. More importantly, that drill in particular, that's why we don't have everybody over there. It's about pad level. It's about fundamentals, and we can really hone in on that. I mean, the only other way to do that is literally take 2 people on the field and have a one-on-one drill. And but in the inside drill, that's what it's about. And there's always going to be an extra defender there, and that's good. That's the way we want it. Because we have to thought up the ball carrier, and the ball carrier is going to learn to run through that contact. But everybody else, it's more important about how are we working the double teams, how are we getting off of blocks, how are we blocking, our hand placement, and then what's the line of scrimmage look like?
When you look at the big picture overall for a week, do you feel like one side of the ball is ahead of the other at this stage?
Well, I think the guys on offense have been in the system longer. But in terms of the intensity, the energy level, I think that both sides are really into it. We had a really good red zone day, and the guys were going back and forth. Defense created a turnover too, got a bunch of stops. Offense scored a little bit, so it was back and forth, and that's what you look for. And again, starting to get towards the middle of camp now, which is great. Those grind days, and the more we can make each other better, I think it's good, but I think our guys are becoming more and more comfortable with the language, with the system, with the scheme, and that's encouraging.
Far left, third row, Bill Landis, Rivals.
Got it. Good job. Right.
I guess two questions on Lathan Ransom. One, are you like shocked that he's out there seemingly able to do everything at the moment? And two, just kind of how has he shown up here through the first 7 practices? He's had a very good summer. He's shown up for sure. And yeah, I mean, it says a lot about Lathan's ability to recovery, had the work he put in with Stu and Sean Barnhouse and everybody in the training room. And it's good to see him. We're certainly keeping an eye on it. You know, every day we kind of have a watch list of guys that we keep a close eye on to make sure that they're good. But he's been able to handle it, and says a lot about him. And Jim the other day was talking about just, I guess, how pleased he is with the defensive line. I know you've not had pads on for very long, but the time that you had them on, have you sort of felt the presence of that group the way you would like to going into the season? Yeah. There's definitely been signs to see that's what we want. Tenacity, pad level, bunch of guys getting after it, nastiness. That's what we need, and our depth's going to be important. And now, can we sustain it over an extended period of time? That's going to be the key, because they've shown they can do it. Both sides of the ball up front. Now, how do we build that callous, that toughness, that saltiness that's going to carry us through a game and through a season? That's what we're building now. But there have been absolute signs that we can do it. So that's encouraging.
The linebackers this week, and Steel Chambers being one of them. He's got a year now playing linebacker, and Jim Knowles said he has some of the most confidence in that linebackers room. From your vantage point, seeing how he went from running back to linebacker, how has his confidence grown? Just think about that.
Yeah, I think last year was an interesting season. You know, there was some highs, there was some lows, and so a lot of things went on last year. But Steele, when you sit back and look at what he did, I think it was around this time last year in the summer where he moved from running back to linebacker, and then played a good amount last year. So said a lot about him as a person and his ability to throw himself right into the fire and just not afraid to fail and just go. And now with a year under his belt of playing the position, I think now it gives him his chance to be his best version of himself and play his best football. And so I think his ability to diagnose plays is even better than it was at this time last year for sure.
Just watching practice today, Sonny Styles getting some reps out there, and I think Knowles even referenced him as maybe a secret weapon. Just from your vantage point, how has Sonny Styles looked this preseason?
Well, for somebody who's supposed to be in high school right now, he's doing darn good. And it's hard when you come in the summer and you're supposed to be, in high school and working with your high school teammates, and he's in there at Ohio State battling in practice. But in the opportunities he's had to compete, he's shown that he's got toughness and his ability to get coached. I mean, he's getting coached pretty hard. He takes it. He works to get better. He's got a great look in his eye, and he's off to a wonderful start.
Second row middle, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
We talked to Zimnichowski the other day. He referenced I guess back in the end of the spring, maybe kind of a meeting he had with you and I guess Justin, and where you kind of talked to him about an opportunity that was ahead of him, maybe not this year, but coming up as soon as next year. What did you try to communicate to him?
Well, that anytime you're trying to build an offensive line, you try to find 5 guys, then you try to find 6, 7, 8. If you can get to 9 or 10, then you feel decent about your depth. And he was in that conversation, is that we need him to be 6, 7, or 8. And we got to feel great about putting him in a game, in the first game against Notre Dame, So that's the challenge for him. Sometimes when you're a young offensive lineman, you just kind of put days in front of days until you realize, like, once you're in the game, it gets real. And so, constant conversation just about what the expectations are.
If you had to have a second left tackle for that first game, is that him right now? Do you think you'd have to go somewhere else?
We're still trying to figure that out. I mean, between he and Josh, they're working really hard to become that third guy. Josh is coming off that injury, and so he's working to get better. Those guys are both working every day, and that's the goal for both of those guys. And hopefully, it can be both of them. So that's why we're practicing.
In particular, you guys like long term about Zen.
Yeah, his athleticism for sure. Just when you're looking at him, it's a guy who moved to offensive line pretty late in his high school career. So has the athleticism, intelligence, all those types of things. Just needs to continue to put days on days and get that feeling of being an offensive lineman and having a block against some really good players on the other side of the ball, and that's really what offensive linemen do. They run into human beings for every day, and you have to get used to that. That's not something you just wake up and do when you're born. You have to practice, the hand placement and just grinding and having the grit and toughness to show up every day and just be physical. And I think that's what he's working on.
Right now, WBNS and TV.
last year you had to work a lot with the defense in the second half of the season. I'm curious, since Knowles has gotten here this fall camp, do you feel like you've gotten to step back, or do you still feel really involved?
Well, I think the relationship between everybody on the defensive staff is excellent. The energy is excellent. I think Jim's done a great job of that. Constantly involved and talking with those guys. I think the dynamic has been good. The relationship's excellent. But at the end of the day, during our conversations, the idea was for him to be the head coach of the defense. And so certainly a lot of back and forth. Jim's excellent to work with, just a professional and in all kinds of ways. Really does a good job with the players, with his staff. But then even just in the conversation that we have, he's always really, really good to work with. So he's running the defense. Certainly, we talk every day about it. We meet every day about it. But I think he's off to a great start. So I know, these guys are working really hard to put their best foot forward week in and week out, in terms of the preseason camp. And I think our guys feel that. I think when they show up to meetings, they feel preparation. They see how, how well the scheme's put together, but still the emphasis on fundamentals. And so, that's all been good, looking forward to see what the scrimmage brings on Saturday.
Week you said the offense hasn't proven anything until they get on the field. Curious, with so much talent returning, is there anything that does concern you right now with that offense? Like what's the one thing that most keeps you up at night with them?
No, not one thing. No, just that you got to prove it day in and day out. You got to play physical. You got to have good balance. You got to take care of the football. You got to score touchdowns in a red zone. All those types of things, and that's a challenge. We got a huge challenge to bring it week in and week out, and be have competitive stamina, and play our best football in the second half, and then obviously down the stretch. But no, again, I don't think there's one thing that we have a concern about, but just again, being able to run the football and throw the ball and have that balance will be very, very important.
Ryan, Jim said that Steele Chambers, Tommy Eichenberg had really taken control of that linebacker room. How confident were you this offseason that was going to happen?
You don't know till you get out there, but you can see it in their eyes, just a different approach, different look in their eyes. When you've never played that position like Steele did, if you haven't started a game like Tommy hadn't going into that game, and they weren't the only ones, there's just a different look. There's doubt. That's just the way it is. You're just not sure. Certainly the guys play with confidence, but there's just that feeling naturally. CJ going into the game, you're just not sure. They've done it now. They've made mistakes. They've had success. They've done those types of things. And, first time you do something, the first time you ride a bike, you fail, you fall off. How quickly do you get back on? You fall again. But then eventually you learn how to ride a bike. And I think the more experience that we got last year, the better going into the season. So seeing a different look in their eye, they both had a really good offseason. That room's had a good offseason. I think their relationship with Jim in that meeting room has been excellent too. So, we'll see.
I know you have to look at the tape. J.K. Johnson had a couple of plays today. Jair Brown being silver bullet of the day. Seems like you're getting guys to step up while you're having these injuries. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good to see those guys step in there. Seeing Cam flash, Jair got his black stripe off the other day. That was great. J.K. Johnson's had some good days out there. It's been good to see them compete. And again, the whole idea here at Ohio State is that you're playing against really good players on your side of the ball. And you feel like, if those guys can cover Jackson, that they can feel confident going into the season, knowing that they played against really good players. And the same thing up front, if Paris and Dewan can block, Zach and Tyler and JT and Jack, then and vice versa, if they can get to the quarterback against those guys. And that's good work day in and day out. And as long as we take care of each other and stay healthy, then we're going to be, sharp going into the season.
Ryan, when you're out there coaching Trey and CJ and Jackson, is it almost more fun this year to be able to nitpick those guys rather than last year when you were just trying to get them up to speed and get them lower in the offense? Like, for you as an offensive guy, how much fun is it for you to just be able to nitpick those guys and just look at the very little details?
Yeah, well, guys play in the NFL for 10, 15 years, and so they're always trying to improve on things. It's a different type of approach. One is inexperienced guys. You're trying to teach them the game. You're teaching them, what to do. As they get experience, you really start to get into how do you do it? Why do you do it? And I think that's really important. How are all the things put together? When you're young, you're just trying to figure out which way to go. And then as it goes, over time, it starts to slow down, and they start asking pretty solid questions about why and how, and then that is fun. It's fun to be around guys who have some experience, but they're still working every day to get better.
And then Mike Hall and Evan Pryor kind of on each side of the ball that redshirted last year, and now they seem like they're really starting to push for some roles. To see a guy on each side like that take full advantage of a redshirt the way they did and really start to show things this year, like, how encouraging is that for you?
Both guys really focus on their development. Mike Hall really worked hard last year to develop, and showed up every day and worked, and has worked this preseason. And when you focus on your development, then the payoff in the end is going to be awesome. And same thing with Evan Pryor. He's focused on that. He stayed positive, and so both of those guys are really developing, and that's been their focus. So in the end, it's going to really pay off for both those guys.
Ryan, you've not released a depth chart. I'm sure you probably won't. But if you were to have one, I'm guessing there are not a lot of starting battles that are true starting battles. On the defensive line, you're going to rotate some
Sure.
guys. It probably doesn't matter. But in your mind, how many starting jobs are really up for grabs, even 1 week into camp?
Yeah, I mean, probably just a handful, like you're saying. But I think there are some positions that we're going to play. We're going to rotate guys and play multiple guys at those positions for sure. But there's a lot of experience coming back, so that's good. Yeah.
True starting battles.
I mean, offhand, just trying to think, yeah. But those guys are doing a good job. I mean, starting to really see what that's going to look like. Really good to see. The way that Cade and Mitch and some of the guys have really worked to be physical and work their hands, and guys you can rely on to do their job. I mean, really good there. But we're going to rotate at a lot of the other positions. So. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I was saying last year, even with Chris and Garrett, they took the majority of the reps on the perimeter. We're going to let those guys rotate a little bit because they deserve to play. And it'll be like that, like you said, in the D-line and some of the other positions.
You said earlier when I asked about the offensive concerns or questions, not one thing. Does that basically mean not a thing, or not one thing that I'm concentrated on, but there are some concerns?
It's not even concerns. It's just, how fast can we get better? How much better can we get? The things that we need to work on. And it's just the fundamentals. It's hand placement. As Pat keeps saying the same thing, pad level, and going back to those types of things. Protection, running the football, execution in the pass game, those types of things. But if you said, like, what is the one thing? I mean, we've got to take care of the football, all those types of things. But there's not one thing. But certainly we're not where we need to be to play in our first game yet. We still got ways to go.
You mentioned Cade made a couple of big plays today. How have you seen him progress in the long game, spatial awareness, route running, all of those things that are with that?
Yeah, that's it. Because that's, at the tight end position, there's so many things that come with that. And in that room, we have guys who have a lot of different skill sets. But, Cade's really worked hard. Obviously played a little linebacker towards the end of it last year. Now he's back playing tight end. His physicality is what you notice the most. And then, for a big guy, he has athletic, has good ball skills. And he's worked hard in the offseason to work on his route running and catching the ball. So that's been excellent. So, good start to camp for him.
You said some positions already known. We know big receivers, but some of the guys that have been here a while want a place in there. One of them is Xavier Johnson.
Yeah.
It seems like every time the ball is near him, he makes the play. Where have you seen him grow and that hunger that he still maintains over all these years?
Yeah, I mean, Xavier Johnson, we say you get better fundamentally on special teams around here. So every time you're in special teams, it's like a football clinic being in here with Parker Fleming, and you just learn about the fundamentals. And this is a guy who's played at a high level on special teams. And so he's cut his teeth here, and he's developed into a really, really good receiver. He's physical. He knows how to run routes. He's just a smart, intelligent football player, and he's got good ball skills. So been very impressed with his first week.
Yeah, Brian, could you get a little more in detail about the guys you see coming along in that offensive line depth group? I mean, for example, Josh,
right.
Enoch, who has caught your eye, I guess? It's a little bit different than you thought about them a year ago.
Well, yeah. Like you said, Enoch Viamahe is somebody that we need to step up and has done some good things this camp. Zan and Josh are two other guys. And then some of the young guys have shown a little flash. seeing Carson out there and Tegra, and that's been good. I just need the rest of those guys to continue to work to get better.
And one other thing, would you guys be better? Would y'all be served better by getting to have a controlled scrimmage with another school about the third week of camp? I mean, would that be feasible? Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever broached that idea with your colleagues? I mean,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As
Yeah.
opposed to, going against the same old every day.
Yeah, definitely thought about it. And it would be intriguing and probably a good conversation. My only concern is that, you're just still dealing with 18, 19, 20 or 21-year-old guys and learning how to take care of each other. I think what's one of the things that we do in practice right now. And in the NFL, they're kind of pros. They understand, rules of engagement and how that works. In college, I'd be a little concerned about, getting guys injured, just because guys would just be working so hard to kind of prove themselves. And so I think it's interesting. And maybe in the spring, I think that would be something that would be interesting as well. Maybe allowing some of the younger guys to even play a game against, another team in the spring. I think that's really interesting conversation, but probably for another day.
Yeah, there's a portal, but not a waiver wire.
Yeah, that's right. That's true too.
Hey, one quick, Justin Fry, what has changed about him from when you were around him before? I mean, these guys all rave about just his enthusiasm, the energy, the willingness to, like Bear Bryant used to do, get in there, when he was young and get after things. I mean, what has just impressed you about him, watching him on the live and in person now?
Yeah. I mean, he played the position, played it in the Big Ten. Dad was a coach, so he's got the right pedigree, brought up the right way. Coach DiNardo and Steve Adazio, different guys, just understands the position at a high level. But who he is as a person, he just connects well. And I think being out with Chip and out at UCLA and kind of having a little bit wider approach than just being with the offensive line is a big deal. Sometimes in the O-line, you just kind of see between tackle to tackle. I think he sees the sideline to sideline now. I think it's made him a better coach.
And final, I've only got time for just a couple more questions. Second row left, second row right, Doug Lamery, Cleveland.com.
Ryan, I was asking the linebacker room, like, who's the fastest linebacker, who's the strongest linebacker, that kind of thing. Almost everybody said Chip Trainum's the fastest, and some of them said Chip Trainum's the strongest also, which seems pretty good. Talk about that transition Steele made, right? What's the transition like for Chip, and how realistic in his first year playing linebacker how realistic is it that he could help you this year?
Yeah, both. You want really good athletes at the linebacker position. And so most really good linebackers in high school play running back for their high school team. And those are two guys that did that. And you could see that, Steele had an impact last year. And I still kind of had to do it because we were a little light at linebacker. And, it was kind of by need. I think this one, like you said, with Chip, I mean, certainly has all the skills, works really hard. Guys on the team respect him, plays hard. He is tough. He has all the skills. So it's just getting more and more reps and playing. And as soon as, we feel like he's ready, he'll go play.
Just watching Emeka Egbuka move around with the ball, he just looks dynamic a lot of the time with the ball in his hands. Year two, big pedigree. Like what's he have to do to really make an impact for you guys this year?
Just keep doing what he's doing. I mean, he made an impact for us last year on special teams as a freshman, certainly returning some of those kicks, the big one at the end of the Rose Bowl. But he's really intelligent. He's really sharp. His work ethic's off the chart. His toughness is off the chart. Ball skills really good. If he just keeps putting days in front of days, he's going to have a really good year.
And G. Scott's another guy that I think a lot of fans are intrigued with the physical transformation. How close is he to? Can he help this year, or is it still sort of in transformation mode for him?
Well, I think when you play the tight end position, there is a transition there, and certainly he's willing, to block inside and do those types of things, and so he's flashed for sure, and he's just grinding right now in the preseason to try to get better and earn some reps out there, and there's certainly been really good signs out there. Yeah, so. But when you're dealing with that position, there's a lot of skills to be done. I mean, you got to be able to run block, you got to be able to protect, you got to be able to run routes. There's a lot there, and so just grinding every day, and then in a couple of weeks we'll come up for air and try to figure out roles into the season and where that goes.
And over here, final questions, far right, Clay Hall, WSYX.
Do you have a Notre Dame period every day
If not, when will you begin to transition? When does the install quit and the?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, this week right here is just all against each other. And we'll go scrimmage on Saturday. And the whole idea is that after this week, we felt like we could check off some boxes of got a better fundamentally toughness, did some tackling against each other. As we come into next week, then we kind of go to the next phase, and over the next 2 weeks, you start to introduce some of those types of things. But right now, it's just against each other and really heavy in fundamentals.
Coach, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Yeah.